Test driving this week, you could say, brought out the younger side of me. No, not up here with the full set of hair, but rather letting things, well, have a little bit more fun. And this vehicle certainly delivered. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now, I'm not a big fan of going over the speed limit, nor even trying out 0 to 60, but I certainly would like to at least get to 45 fairly quickly. In this vehicle, well, the 2021 Bmw M2 Cs certainly delivered. So my mischievous grin came at first glance of this vehicle. This lightning blue exterior certainly separated from the likes of anything else I've seen on the road. The gold rims at the four corners even gave a nostalgic feel, and with the carbon fiber elements wrapping around this vehicle, well, this certainly was going to be a head turner and also a neck snapper. By the numbers, this vehicle comes in around about 176 inches long, wheelbase around about 106, just over 6 feet wide, and 55 inches tall with a 4.6 inch ground clearance. As for weight, 3,600 pounds for the manual, or as tested at another 55 pounds for the automatic. As for weight distribution here on this vehicle, 53% in the front, 47% towards the back. A little bit of nostalgic flair can be found at the four corners with those 19-inch wheels, Y-spoke design adorning in kind of that gold color. Matching, of course, is the brake calipers. When it comes to braking, you're seeing 6-piston in the front, 4-piston here in the rear. As for the tires, 245/35s in the front, 265/35s here at the back end. When it comes to design, open face look isn't just for the wheels, but also here at the grill warfare. First with the stylized kidney-shaped grills. No adaptive shutter control here, but just simply open all the time to gobble all that air up. Here on the hood with the extraction venting to get the heat out. Now, pretty much for the accents, you're going to find black appointments all the way around where there's not carbon fiber. Down low, again, gobbling as much air, really flaring out, more carbon fiber, and even airflow around to the corners into those little niches. As for the rest of the design, you're going to see nice body color all the way around this vehicle, except, again, the touches of carbon fiber and black appointments where needed. Also helping with dialing this vehicle in specifically into the tight spots is the parking sensors, because down here, this ground clearance of 4.6 inches, well, it doesn't equate very well when getting to those, well, touchy-feely areas, specifically curves. What I also found is with the overall footprint, you really don't have to slide all the way into the parking spaces. You're going to want to stop short, because one little touch here could mean a little bit of damage. Under the hood, you have a 3.0 liter inline 6-cylinder twin power turbo. That's going to deliver around about 405 horses and 406 foot-pounds of torque. 0 to 60 numbers in around about 4 seconds, even though I did 0 to 45, and that was just good enough for me. Now, as for the transmission, this one came with the double clutch automatic, but it can come with the 6-speed manual if you do prefer the clutch stance. As for the double clutch, that is a 7-speed with launch control. Carbon fiber appointments can be found all the way around this vehicle here on the side mirrors, the roof line, the rear spoiler, even that lower fascia. But you also saw it there under the hood around the engine. Serves two purposes: helps to stiffen this vehicle up, as well as it's a nice lightweight material. Now, I mentioned at the four corners how that gold inspired look is kind of a nostalgic feel. Well, you could also say that nostalgia translates right here at the door with the key fob. Instead of the more newer style, which is a smart key system, this is more traditional. When you get to the door handle, doesn't know you're there. Instead, you got to interact with this lock, unlock. Not a big deal, but on a vehicle that's over $90,000, could you say they put most of their effort, well, in the sport? Well, certainly. So most of us will kind of overlook this, hit the button, and climb right in. This exterior color is referred to as Long Beach Blue and is one of the first head turners on this vehicle, but the next really is these quad pipes and how they couple nicely with that inline turboed 6, basically giving you that hum and roar on demand. Now, that blue certainly encompasses this entire vehicle, wrapping all the way around. Again, just carbon fiber accents here and there. Otherwise, that blue really fills in every void when you find it. Now, this vehicle has two business ends of things there at the front, and you wouldn't think on a coupe there'd be much to talk about, but surprisingly, just under 14 cubic feet, pretty substantial, and even rivals some sedans. And where it all begins is with this nice electronic release. Once this opens up, you're going to see a typical cavernous area really reaching in. You almost kind of get lost once you climb in. Might want to have that miner's cap on just in case you need to light things up. But what I noticed is really can engulf everything, and even better is this nice cargo netting, because it is going to sling things around here when you start getting to those S curves. So having something to hunker things down in place doesn't hurt. Now, climbing inside the BMW M2, don't send any novice in here just to, let's say, move the vehicle, because if they're not ready, one, to hold on tight, and two, to just move the vehicle, well, it may be this that is the problem. Now, first off, this is the double clutch, clutchless automatic, requires no foot dancing, but instead a little bit of know-how here. It doesn't make too much of a difficulty for most individuals. What you're going to see is reverse, neutral, drive, and sport mode. Sport, of course, giving you that clutchless feel where you can kind of shift on the fly, but really knowing what you're doing. Now, what also has is kind of this, again, old school approach, this handbrake. A lot of vehicles go into more of a push-pull little button. This going to be a lift into place when needed. Also, pretty much going to set it every time you're in the vehicle. Treat this vehicle like it is a typical manual operation. Now, when it comes to operation of this, real simple. Just simply hold the brake down, push it up into the left for reverse, pull it back into the right for drive, and again, tap it again for that sporty feel. But if you need to, put it in neutral right in the middle, again, like a manual transmission. Rev the gas when you're sitting at the stoplight, and lets everyone hear those RPMs thumping. A lot of vehicles go into a big LCD look, even wrapping over here to the gauge cluster, but more traditional here on the M2. Again, focusing more on the sport performance side of this vehicle versus a lot of those extra ergonomics. Now, what you see is a traditional look on the BMW. It's nice screen, kind of an arm stretch away, so you're not really going to be touchscreen interacting with it, but instead using the central control knob, which we've all experienced numerous times. Little shortcuts up here as well, really intuitive and easy to use. Now, when it comes to climate controls, dual zones up front, nice dialing specific temperature settings, push button for fan speed, as well as mode select for both front occupants independent. We found a lot of traditional touches here on the M2 and look no further for more than on the gauge cluster. Analog tach and speedometer, but does have a nice digital readout for speed. Now, at first that wasn't there, and the way you're going to change the information is with this little lever over here on the side. Hit the BC button. That's going to allow you to scroll through various functions and informative areas. But what I like is, again, that digital readout, because here on the analog, that needle is more of a guesstimator in my approach, because, well, you just can't dial in specifically how fast you're going. Instead, that digital readout there will give you exact number. Now, while some of the ergonomics and extra touchy-feely things are missing, what's not is the performance side of this vehicle, and you can find that right down with the various driving setup modes, from the performance, suspension, and steering feel, and that all translates here to the gauge cluster in a modest LCD display there on the bottom portion. Now, once you change one function, for example, the performance side, you simply select between efficient, sport, sport plus. It lets you know what's going on. Simultaneously, it does change the suspension and driving feel, but you can independently change those as well. Just simply select that area, change it to comfort, as well as the steering feel, so you can kind of have a sporty side, but maybe a bit more comfortable when needed. One thing I found on sporty coupes like the M2 is oftentimes when the dash sweeps down, they have to find a place for the drink holders. They're modestly tucked underneath. That means smaller drinks will find a home with ease, but taller ones are going to come in contact with this overhang. So oftentimes the drinks are going to lean forward just a hair, so you may have to go with the more small option than the extra large. Also, keeping everything nice and sleek is this covering. Just simply slide it. That's going to hide all the operation underneath. Also, finding a nice area to store your electronics when needed, though it isn't a wireless charging area. But again, a lot of the extra ergonomics aren't meant for this vehicle, but instead it's focused again on sport. Between the front occupants, you will find this elongated kind of center console. No operation underneath. Does give modest elbow support, though I'd argue more for the passenger than the driver. But again, if the driver's, well, having some sport-inspired driving, where they're going to be 10 and 2 locked and ready on the steering wheel, so their elbow won't be sitting here anyway. It'll probably be elevated. For true customization, you do have the M1 and M2 options. Set those so when you need it, you just press it, and it's going to relate to exactly how you set up this vehicle. Now, I mentioned earlier how this automatic transmission really feels more like a manual. You'll see it here on the gear shifter. No true parking mode to be found, but really the way it works, you just keep it in drive, and then when you go to turn the vehicle off, what you'll see is that indicator there on the dash just simply change the park. That means obviously this is not a true manual transmission, and as you turn it off, it's going to roll down the road, but instead switches into park mode. Now, this vehicle does have various shift points. You can select it right here, either a single, double, or triple level. Once you get to the highest setting, that's going to stretch it out the longest point between shifts. When it comes to legroom numbers, you're going to find around about 41 inches in the front. All of this nice race-inspired seating really encapsulates you and keeps you from slinging around. Also handles about any size individual with ease. As for backseat drivers, going to be a little bit more skimpy, around about 33 inches, but you could argue with a little bit extra room up front, the front seats can slide forward, maybe get it on up to about 35, maybe to a modest comfort level. As for seating, it's a 2+2 design, so 4 people total. Now the seating here on the M2 obviously powered in the front. That could make it problematic when sliding the front seat forward to gain access for backseat drivers. But what I like first off is this release handle. That's going to tip it forward, but also these power controls, just simply press it. It's going to slide the seat forward, gaining more access for the backseat drivers. Then you can just simply press it back and it's going to ease it back into place. For the BMW M2, you can say it's about the full package. The nostalgic feel meets the future tense of where BMW is headed. The gold rims, the carbon fibers, this Long Beach blue exterior. Don't forget the twin turbos at the front, coupled nicely with the quad pipes, letting everyone know this vehicle can get the job done. But where it all begins is in the coupe seating there in the front. And if you need to, you can throw those friends you don't like the most there in the back. But either way, everyone's going to have a rip-roaring time. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.